I recall pretty vividly at least a couple of auditions. I recall getting the part, and I recall some of the complications it was for my family to move to Los Angeles for a while. I recall very vividly signing the contract because it was an enormous stack of papers. But yeah, I think I remember the audition process very well because Ann Beats was so involved. She cared a lot more than any number of people who you might audition for. And Eve Branstein, who was the casting director, they had a very maternal approach to the process, and I'm sure not just with me, but with all the young actors that were auditioning. And you got to read a lot of scenes. You didn't just read, you know, a small portion of a scene. And Eve did take off her glasses and put them on me to see what I would look like with glasses. And I just really, I don't recall the details, but I recall really liking them and, you know, just noting that they were smart and funny, both of them together. And at the time in New York, it was at a hotel room. There weren't, I think there were very few other people involved in the audition process besides Anne and Eve at that point, early on. My mother and my two baby siblings, Erin and Allegra, who are now 30 and she's just shy of 30. Allegra has a 6-year-old son. Allegra has a son who is older now than she was then. And my mother came, of course, because the child labor laws were different in Southern California than in New York. In New York at that time, no one was enforcing child labor laws. You could work a child, you know, any number of indecent hours. And in Los Angeles, as you and many of us recall, you know, we were able to work a certain amount of hours. We had to complete our schoolwork. We had to wrap at certain times. So my mother was there, and it was very odd for both of us because I had never spent that much time with my mother. And I was 16, and really the last person that I really wanted to spend that much time with was my mother. And I'm sure she felt the same way about spending enormous hours with her 16-year-old daughter. And we had to drive great distances to Norwalk, California every morning, and she wanted to listen to NPR every morning, and I wanted to listen to K-Rock every morning. And my siblings had to be dropped off at school. We found a Montessori school in Norwalk, and it was an upheaval for my family, and probably just, you know, yet another sacrifice that my mother made for me. I really don't feel any resentment or disappointment about the choices that I made as a young person that kept me from living a life that is a more expected life for an adolescent. I feel really, on the contrary, really lucky because I wasn't a great student. I didn't have an academic calling. I wasn't terrifically social in high school. I didn't have a lot of friends. I didn't fit in well. I felt very different because I had been out of school so much as a working actor. So for me, square pegs, never mind professionally all the satisfaction that came from it and being part of something that I thought was very special, but it was an escape from, you know, the humdrum rigors of public high school. And I liked the kind of responsibilities that I had, that were expected of all of us on the show, and what a burden it was on us, you know, especially myself and Amy, because we were there every day working. I loved those kind of burdens. I had grown accustomed to them, and I just feel that I benefited from being a working actor for so many years. I mean, the things that I can't do, the deficits in my life are really about, like, I don't really know how to write a term paper properly or organize my thoughts on paper, or, you know, I don't have any great sense of the order of history. You know, I didn't get to study any number of things that you do in high school or college with any great dedication. But as an adult, I like to learn on my own anyway, maybe because I didn't so much. I mean, I always, you know, I did things that were of interest to me. I seemed to do better at, but I preferred I preferred acting, and I don't know why or what my own pathology is, but I don't know, I feel lucky that people around me allowed my life to be that, you know, that I wasn't forced to do things that I didn't feel good about. I don't think it's the answer for most children, but for me and for my family, it worked out all right. I didn't relate to her intellectual prowess because I just thought she was much more applied in school, and she had discipline in areas that I just didn't. But I really, really liked her, and I really admired her, and she was sort of the kind of person that I wished I could be, or would hope to be, or even aspire to be, because she was so bright and she was so principled about who she was. Even though she was seduced temporarily by trends or fads or this desire to be part of a larger group, her innate, authentic person was, just wait till I get to college, then I'll find the interesting people like myself. And she really didn't fall as much victim to a lot of the the landmines that exist for adolescents trying to fit in. I mean, I think she thought she should she thought she should want to be like everybody else, and there were moments that were real pangs of that desire, but she was very, you know, both her character and Amy's character, Lauren, they were kind of unusual young women because they really were oddly comfortable in their oddness in a strange way. And maybe they were comforted by each other, I don't know. I have made the connection between, you know, from Patty Green to Carrie Bradshaw, and I have said it publicly on an occasion. I mean, I haven't, you know, made it a proclamation in any, but I've, you know, said it probably in interviews. And really, people have not always cottoned to that connection, but to me, I think it's kind of astounding that that I played that character then, who was her own person, you know, very much her own person, and with those aspirations of being a writer, and that Carrie Bradshaw is in many ways, you know, a destination point for Patty Green. Like, I don't think it's ridiculous. I don't think it's absurd. I think that Carrie Bradshaw really is not a popular girl. She wasn't, to me, she wasn't a popular girl, but she lives in a city that really cultivates the individual. She lives in New York City, and in New York City, being your own person is really what's valued, and Patty Green was in the wrong place. And so I see, you know, that might have become that person. You know, the values are a little bit skewered, but there's things about them that are striking.